guys? Welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go to an article titled, Women Fear Republicans Will Move to Overturn No-Fault Divorce Laws. And a shout out to Thomas for sending me this article here. And guys, just like the article says, it seems there's some definite fear going on here. Now that red has taken the land here, that there's some fears, growing fears, that next thing to go could be potentially no-fault divorce. And quite frankly, as I've been doing this 5 years and have done countless stories of guys, good guys who've done nothing, get royally screwed in divorces because the wife was getting screwed, I think this is a great idea. How many guys out there watching this, or how many guys have I done stories about? Or maybe some of you guys have been involved in this where these guys did nothing wrong. They were great husbands, loving, loyal, supportive, all that. And boom, the wife wants to divorce him for a number of reasons. Or worse yet, she's cheating on him. And still, he gets hammered and did nothing wrong. Half goes to her, not to mention she's likely to get the house, custody of the kids, absurd alimony. I mean, the list goes on and on. All because of no fault, doesn't matter, even though she was at fault for the whole thing going down. Or maybe just easily she just wants to divorce the husband, not work on things because she, disagrees with his politics. Already, stories are coming in, articles popping up of wives divorcing their husbands because of how they voted in this in 2024 election. Breaking up a family over that shit. So to me, there's deep concern that the marriage rate's going down. Less guys are getting married and gals are getting upset about this. And I said, make things more fair for guys. And then you might have guys rethink that. So I think one of the first things to go needs to be the no-fault divorce thing. But anyhow, I'm going to go through this article here, and you'll see more I'm talking about. It says here, Susan Guthrie first noticed attacks on no-fault divorce gaining traction among conservative commenters in the spring of 2023, recalling when right-wing YouTuber Steven Crowder went into a rage over the Texas no-fault divorce law that allowed his wife to leave him against his wishes. Since then, Guthrie, a family law and mediation attorney who hosts the popular Divorce and Beyond podcast, has heard growing attacks on no-fault divorce from conservatives. She focused on the issue in her Monday episode, just before the simmering fears among some women exploded into view on Election Day. Oh, I'm sure they did. In the hours after former President Donald Trump won a presidential election that heavily focused on women's rights, women began turning on social media to vent their frustrations and worries about another rollback of women's rights in a country that has taken a rightward shift. Rights, the no-fault divorce is a right. It's a load of crap. Now, there are cases, and this will be brought up, that makes it harder to get away from a genuinely bad abusive situation, which nobody should be in. But we all know who's getting screwed in the whole no-fault divorce thing. Guys. So it's not fair. It's not balanced. So no. Google searches for no-fault divorce surge, particularly in red states like Mississippi, Missouri, and South Dakota, while popular TikTok users urge people who were considering ending their marriage to act fast. There we go. Said, if you're unhappy in your marriage, now might be the time to act. Leah Marie, a divorce coach, said in a TikTok video that has been viewed more than 780,000 times since Wednesday. A divorce coach? Like, she's not a divorce attorney, she's a divorce coach. She says, protect your right to choose what is best for you and your kids before it's taken away, she added. Oh my God. For you and the kids. Gotta throw in the kids there just to, make it more, No-fault divorce can make ending a marriage more accessible for a spouse who has fewer resources or who has been abused or controlled by a partner. According to a widely cited 2022 study by the American Sociological Association, nearly 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Well, that seems to be accurate. I've heard 80, but just because they're initiating divorce doesn't mean that there's actual ABUSC. Even though, how many guys have been out on dates with gals or girlfriends, and they ask them what happened, and in varying degrees, they hint around or say the ABUSC. It's nonsense. How many of these marriages have ended because the wives were shit, and they went to monkey branch to somebody else, or they were cheating? Don't get me wrong, there are men out there that are awful husbands, and are drunks, and abusive, and do all these awful things, and those motherfuckers should get what's coming to them. But by and large, the ones that get raked over the coals are good guys, average guys, just like you or me. That can happen to anybody, right? But we can see the bias already in this article. She says, though many people don't realize it, the effort to end no-fault divorce has a disproportionate effect on women, Guthrie said. I think we need to pay attention to it because a lot of things we don't think would happen, like Roe versus Wade being overturned, did happen. The voices are going to get louder with the results of this election. Roe versus Wade, guess what? It's now in the states. I'm going to point that out. Says here, the movement to end no-fault divorce has not been a Republican priority at the national level or on the campaign trail. Trump, who's been married 3 times and divorced twice, has not publicly spoken about it. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, said in a 2021 speech, Unearthed this year, that people divorce too easily, shifting spouses like they change their underwear. Well, he's right. It's that easy. Again, how many people are divorcing their husband now already because the wives don't like how the husband voted in this past election? I did an article earlier about this. You'll see it later. I'm not kidding. Legal scholars and said concerns over losing no-fault divorce are not unfounded, citing the widespread confidence women once had about federally protected abortion rights before they were struck down in 2022 by the Supreme Court, whose conservative majority was solidified in Trump's first term. But experts were clear that from a practical standpoint, changes in divorce law would take place at the state level. Well, I believe that is correct at the states. While there is a constitutional right to marry, there is no constitutional right to divorce, which means divorce laws will never come before a federal court, says Margaret Reisner, a visiting professor at Brooklyn Law School and editor emeritus of the Family Law blog. She says the state legislatures can write or amend the divorce laws like they would any other state law. The good news is that no federal election or presidential election can impact that directly because there's no federal constitutional issue. Now this article is going to go into Reagan, and we're going to talk about how Reagan did the thing I definitely disagree with. It says Reagan and the rise of no-fault divorce. Until Republican California Governor Ronald Reagan made his state the first to enact no-fault divorce in 1970, every state required the fault of either husband or wife to be established before a divorce would be granted. States designated specific grounds that would qualify a divorce, like infidelity, extreme cruelty, abandonment, or incarceration. Reagan, a divorcee himself, signed California's no-fault divorce law, saying it would do much to remove the sideshow elements of many divorce cases. Yeah, I want to point out that he had already been through a divorce. Fault-based divorce was often lengthy, expensive, and a pain, and clogged family courts with bitter cases that could drag on for years. Yeah, it could, but you know what? Look what the result of all this is. Now who's getting screwed? And again, yeah, fine. Back in the day, it would drag things out for a long time, but at the end of the day, things are a better deal for guys, and it has not been a good deal for guys. Before no fault, it's not as if no one was divorcing. It was just a more tedious process. It was more difficult on the courts and on the couples, providing someone was insane or impotent. Fault-only divorce leads to logistical issues that aren't necessary. In other words, they want to just make it easier for the courts, make things smoother, make things easier, and let's be honest, we know who benefits from this, But it says since 2010, all states have permitted no-fault divorce, though the process, timeframes, and requirements differ. Incompatibility or irreconcilable differences are common reasons cited in divorce. In the vast majority of cases, both parties do not have to agree for marriage to be ended. So, my biggest issue is just how, and I think you guys agree with me, how again you could have guys, or anybody for that matter, a guy or a gal, that does something horrible. We can usually use cheating, multiple affairs and all that, and then the marriage ends, and still the person ruining everything, whether it's the guy or the gal through the cheating, still they get half. There's no repercussions. That's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And you've heard these stories for years now if you're watching me, or other channels. And that just isn't right. And again, more and more guys are walking away. Not just from marriage, but also relationships. So if you want to get guys back to getting married again, which will then statistically improve the birth rates, which I know governments around the world want to improve upon, you start making things more fair for guys in the event of a divorce. And currently the no-fault thing is not fair. A 2003 paper published by the National Bureau of Economic Research shows that female suicides declined by around 20% in the long run in states that adopted no-fault divorce, and that those states also record large declines in domestic violence committed by and against both men and women. Well, we don't want that to happen because that's awful. Nobody should be in that situation. It's terrible. But what has been going on with the no-fault thing isn't working either. It says red states consider a rollback. Religious conservatives and men's rights activists have been among the most vocal opponents of no-fault divorce, arguing that it contributes to weakening the institution of marriage, deprives children of the benefits of a two-parent household, and unfairly favors women in financial and custodial settlements. Thank you. Exactamundo. How many single-parent households are raising kids nowadays? It doesn't make a difference how great mom or dad is. Children need both. Both have things to contribute to help the kids grow and for the world. And don't get me started on boys that are raised by the single MOMs. I mean, you look around, and not to mention, of course, the financial aspect of this. It says here, Marcia A. Zug, who teaches family law at Rice School of Law at the University of South Carolina, said the shifting political winds indicate efforts to end no-fault divorce are absolutely on the table. She says this is easier to get rid of than abortion rights, Zug said. Obviously, the biggest indication is that if a state legislature start proposing it. 5 years ago, no one was. Though no state has come close to rolling back no-fault divorce, several states with Republican supermajorities in their legislatures have seen bills introduced or attacks on no-fault divorce as part of the state GOP party platforms. The Nebraska GOP platform states that no-fault divorce should be limited to situations in which the couple has no children or the marriage, while the Texas GOP says the legislature should rescind unilateral no-fault divorce laws. In Louisiana, the Republican State Central Committee last year considered a resolution to do away with no-fault divorce. An Oklahoma lawmaker introduced a bill in January to eliminate the option of no-fault divorce, while a South Dakota lawmaker has repeatedly tried since 2020 to remove irreconcilable differences as grounds for divorce. How interesting. Thus far, the bills have gained little traction. The latest bill, sponsored by State Rep. Tony Randolph, a Republican, was killed by South Dakota's House Judiciary Committee in February by 11-2 vote. Randolph did not respond to the Washington Post's request for a comment Thursday on whether he would introduce another bill next session. Well, just because it didn't work then doesn't mean it can't be reintroduced down the road. If a state were to eliminate no-fault divorce, Zug said, there would probably be more unnecessary fraud as couples create actionable grounds for divorce. More money spent on private investigators to collect evidence of wrongdoing, and more splits where the needless acrimony negatively affects a divorcing couple's children. There will be all sorts of problems that come from a fault-only system, Zug said. Zug said attitudes towards protecting no-fault divorce laws can mirror those on abortion rights. General indifference towards something people assume they themselves will never need to access. Don't get me wrong, guys. If everything all of a sudden became, if there's no longer no-fault divorce, okay, therefore you need a reason to prove who's the wrongdoer. An unfortunate side effect is going to be is that you can have some of these wacko gals go out of their way to, say their husband did some things, and and usually the woman's going to be believed. While before, just easily, I want to get divorced, that's it. So that's going to be a negative thing that's going to come out of it. This goes through. Zug likes to have her law students read the 1993 study, Whenever a Relationship is Above Average, where people applying for marriage licenses were surveyed for their knowledge of divorce statistics and their perceptions of their own relationships. Even among respondents who knew the divorce rate, most assumed their own marriage would never fail. Yeah, how many people there are just applying for their marriage licenses and are about to get married really want to talk about marriage failing? I remember years ago, I went to when was this? This was 2016. I went to my younger cousin. She got married. Fun wedding. And I was there, and I was getting a drink, and a young couple, they started chatting me up. How do you know such and such and all that type of thing? And they were asking me questions and, marriage and all that. And I said flat out, I don't believe in marriage. And I gave my reasons why. And they listened, and they were good listeners. And then they said, oh, we're getting married next month. Talk about a foot and mouth moment. But I really didn't care. But they, of course, didn't think. But statistically, between my cousin and those people getting married, probably one of them was going to get divorced. Now, my cousin and her husband, they're still together, and it's been 8 years, a kid, they're happy. So, but anyhow, a little flashback there. She says, when you have that kind of disconnect, people might not be as upset initially about getting rid of a no-fault divorce because they think they won't need it. People may not realize how difficult fault-based divorces are. Well, gentlemen, we shall see. But the point is, I have just seen and heard too many stories and people I've known getting really screwed, and it ain't right. So, something has to be done because, again, more and more guys are getting married. More and more guys are waking up, realize it's a bad deal. The only way you're going to get guys to get back into getting the numbers up in terms of marriage again is it becomes more fair, an easier deal for the guy, because it's completely unbalanced and unfair. And until then, I don't encourage you to do it because you're going to get screwed. And yeah, you can say I can get a prenup, but you can get the most ironclad prenup you think is out there that the lawyer will sell you. And even if she gets one too by a different lawyer and no duress can be proved, all it takes is some fucking judge who's fallen for her goddamn tears, is all soft and has a daughter himself, and you're shit out of luck. So we shall see how this goes, guys, and I think that it's time for it to go, but we'll see. And yeah, can there be cons out of this? Of course, And the big thing they talk about is like, okay, let's say you have a married couple, and the guy's a drunk, and he does a lot of bad things he shouldn't. I gotta watch what I say here on YouTube. That's horrible. He's a piece of shit, and it can be difficult for her to get out of it. Again, that's horrible. But it seems that most of these stories, the ones that are sent to me, that I've covered over the years, these are just normal, good guys that just, whoosh, their whole world's turned upside down. She's cheating, she ruined the whole thing, or in some capacity, or divorcing him over politics, and he gets screwed. So that ain't right. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. I really want to hear what you have to say about this. If you know anybody that's been, been through this process, let's hear about it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.